Today, Tyre Nichols' family is preparing for his funeral in Memphis. Nichols was killed after he was beaten by 5 police officers. Those officers are now charged with his murder. 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor joins us now to discuss this case moving forward. Good morning, Whitney.
Good morning. Good
I know you're pivoting your normal segment because this is extremely timely here. We were just talking about the video. It's beyond hard to watch, Whitney, and we've seen feels like too many of these cases now. How is it stacking up to some other cases that we've seen? How does it compare?
Yeah, it was tough to watch, and honestly, I wouldn't have watched it had I not been coming on the show. And I think this is typical in the sense that when you see these kind of cases, there's a lot of commonalities. I look at the officer's face. They're angry. They're violent. They're coming in escalated. When you have these situations, starting back with Rodney King, and then you look at George Floyd and even Christian Glass, the officers, even though it was a shooting, within 3 minutes of approaching Christian Glass, this very innocent young boy, they had their guns raised. So we have to do something about this culture of policing, but the level of violence in these cases, there's a lot of theories for that, but of course the exception in this case was you had black officers, which takes out or may add a nuance to the situation.
That's what's different from some of these other ones.
Yes, for sure. Well, and some people say, well, there's still this notion of self-hate, and you have this notion of, the meanest slave catchers were the black ones, and the hardest overseers were the black ones. And here, I think it also just boils down to an abuse of power.
Sure.
Right? And you have these situations where there happen to be video cameras, but how many times?
A lot of cameras.
Without video cameras, correct. Yeah. And so this was a situation where you have 5 officers, you have this group mentality. Had it been just one officer, maybe it wouldn't have been quite intense, but when you have 5 officers in this group mentality, it just continued to escalate. And what you saw was really the officers getting more and more angry because at the stop they said, he ran, and you have to consider, he was only 145 pounds. Each of these officers were over 200 pounds. So yes, most people would run. And then one of the officers pepper sprayed the other one. And then they lost their glasses. And each time you just saw them amping up. And the real concern was that no one stopped anything. And that's why here in Colorado we have the police accountability law. Well, they don't have that in Memphis. And had they had it, I don't know if that would have made a difference.
And that was a similar conversation with Christian Glass. No one stopped the situation. Like, what is happening here? What defense do the police have in this case?
Well, and that's what's, I don't know, heartbreaking in a way. When you see these things happen, everyone saw George Floyd and saw someone on his neck for 9 minutes. And then afterwards it was, well, he might have been on drugs. It could have been these other things. So here, people still do believe in the police. There is still obviously a lot of good police. So all it takes is one juror to say, no, not guilty. And so here they may say, well, he tried to flee. He had drugs in his system. There's a lot of other things that, and then officers may point at one another. So there will be a defense. And that's what's difficult about these situations. When you see with your eyes what happened on all these different angles, and then, there's not a prosecution. But
well, regardless of a lot of that, really quickly too, he wasn't resisting them.
That's the issue as well. He was in fear, and that's when you have someone restrained, these aren't situations where people are resisting or even moving for that
pulling a gun or anything like that.
That's exactly right. So, and that makes it that much more tragic. And then the injuries were extensive. And so you just have to look at the violence, and I tell the people, look at when you see these videos, the one in Colorado Springs, the officer just beating him in the face with so much hate and anger in their face. And so we need to look at that in terms of how do we de-escalate that? Is it a different level of training? 25% of the police comes from the military. We have Initiative 1133 where the police get a bunch of military equipment. are we amping the police up to come into these situations hot? And that's, you know, I think that's a temperament, that's the type of people they're hiring, but certainly they have to be looking at these videos and trying to do better.
Whitney, as always, thank you so much. I know a lot of details and a lot that still will be uncovered with this case, Whitney.
I'm sure I'll be back.
Yeah, you will. Thank you so much.